the novelty in which our world is changing is so quick that you're almost not even going to catch the changes if you're not really paying attention to everything. And so I would say at this point, only about 3%, generously, of the information that you see on social media or websites or whatever, ads, whatever it is actually going to be applicable to your life in a positive way in which you actually learn something and grow from it. You know, I find more value in books sometimes than I do talking to people, and even people that are so-called experts in their field. I would prefer to read a book because at least the person that wrote the book has some kind of form of understanding, usually, that is a deeper level. And even though oftentimes book writers are a little bit more introverted, they're a little bit more deep thinkers sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes it's true. So we have to recognize what's worth paying attention to and what's not. And especially if you're a man at this time and you know what it's like to be at level 0, at rock bottom, you know that now is always the time to choose to win. You don't have to lose. You don't have to choose to lose. You can fail and you can fail and you can fail, but you can choose not to lose. If you refuse to lose and you pick yourself up and you always, even when you fall flat on your face, you always get back up and get back to doing what you need to be doing, man, it's like, you know that no matter how many times you get knocked down, you can always come back. Once you get to really rock bottom, and every man that has been at rock bottom knows that now is the time to win at all times. Now is always now. It's always now. The present moment is all we ever really have. But the memory that we have makes it seem like the timelessness that we can experience isn't necessarily all the way there. But as a man that has been at rock bottom, like I've been at rock bottom several times, and it was, I guess, how do I say this? It wasn't necessarily several times. It was more like there was one time where I was at really rock bottom, and then there was one other time right before I started to choose to follow Christ that I was almost at like level 1, maybe. I wasn't, like, I knew my destination, I just didn't know how to get there. It was like, I know where I'm trying to go, but I don't know how I'm going to do that. I don't know how I'm going to get there. This is really tough to figure out and think about. Well, what did I do? I ended up just asking God for guidance, and I wasn't really asking God, though. I was just asking for something to change, like something to change. And that was when Jesus found me. I didn't find Jesus. Jesus found me. I was the one that was lost. I was in the woods, so to speak. And he was the one that was able to show me the way. And because he is the way, the truth, and the life. But any man that knows rock bottom, like true rock bottom, where there is literally nowhere to go but up, that's when you can really make the understanding within yourself that there's no such thing as losing. You can fail, but you never have to lose anymore. You never have to lose, and because you're always learning or you're always winning. That's it. And that's just a mindset that every man must have, especially in today's day and age. And I have a good feeling, I'm fairly positive that men will be able to see a new pathway taking place where sovereignty is going to be the end goal. And it's really not an end necessarily, because sovereignty is just freedom itself, but you understand what I'm saying here. And you know, you have to enjoy the bad times just as much as the good times on your way to sovereignty. And I've been sick for the last week and a day. And I just had a sore throat, nothing crazy to begin with, but then day 3 and day 4 was pretty rough. But then I started to get a little bit better day 5 and 6, and then by 7 and 8, which is today, day 8, I'm finally like, I'm on the cusp of 100% feeling back to normal, and really healthy and virile and vigorous, etc. Like, I'm able to go 100% at the gym now, so thank God for that. But I'm definitely getting the sense that even in those times over the past week where, specifically like day 3 and 4, for example, I was at probably my most sick that I've been in a couple of years. And even though it didn't really last long, I still had to find ways to enjoy it because it was just so miserable. I mean, it was like the fever, stuffy nose, could barely breathe, cough. Yeah, I couldn't even talk without saying anything. My throat hurt. Like, everything was just. It was a pretty heavy cold. I think that's what it was just a cold. But it might have been part of the pandemic. Who knows? But it was just something crazy that was going on, and I learned that. Like, I had to remind myself, I suppose, because I've already learned this, but I had to remind myself that you've got to be able to enjoy the times where you're in the dark, and whether you want to be there or not, you have to recognize that these things are going to help you grow. And literally Wednesday and Thursday and Friday specifically, today's Saturday when I'm filming this, Thursday and Friday, I had nothing but spiritual downloads. It was just poof, 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 poof. Everything was starting to just make a lot of sense for me. Even though I didn't quite understand the downloads themselves, I knew intuitively and instinctually that things were beginning to make sense. And I was just coming into a more grounded state because, like, day 3 or 4 of that sickness, it felt like, I don't know if anybody's had COVID before, but the first time that I had COVID, it didn't happen the other time that I had COVID, but the first time that I had COVID, which was in 2020, I felt like my mind wasn't even connected to my body. It was super strange. It was a very weird sickness. It was as if I was just completely floating off on a log in the middle of the ocean, and I could watch these ships for help pass by, but I couldn't do anything to get on the ship. That was just what it felt like. I don't know how else to describe it. It was a very peculiar experience. Didn't happen the next time I had COVID in like 2022 or something, but in 2020, man, that was a weird thing that happened. And this was kind of similar, and that's why I kind of think that it was a little bit like COVID, but still I was still able to enjoy that darkness. I was still able to find, the work that I was able to do, because when you're in that mode of the darkness, you can't really think straight. You can't even look at the screen, right? You can't even look at your notes or read a book. Like, everything that you try to do just sucks, and so you kind of have to just sit there looking at the ceiling and just like accepting that it'll all pass. And that's exactly the kind of frame of mind that you have to have sometimes. You just have to have the frame of mind that this will pass. Anybody heard the song, George Harrison, Everything Must Pass? Or All Things Must Pass? Anyway, that's a really good song if anybody wants to check that out. But it reminded me of that song, and it's a beautiful song about just recognizing that we are just here for a time, and we can accept that, and we can really move forward with a sense of gratitude and compassion and faithfulness in what's more than this life. Because this life, like all of what I've built with my businesses, my YouTube channel, etc., what I've built, it will come to pass sometime, someday, because ultimately, everything that I do is for the glory of the Most High. Everything that I do, I'm a servant for him and his will. And that's what happens when you really come to Christ. You just start to be used as a vessel, and you willfully give yourself as a vessel. And it's funny how when you're at your darkest moments, when you're in the rock bottom, when you fully accept that you can be a vessel of the Most High, and you just surrender to him only, you don't surrender to anybody else or anything else, you just surrender to him, that's when everything starts to get better. Everything starts to make sense. Everything starts to feel more grounded. You're actually walking with your feet on the ground, right? A lot of people, it's weird because you have your feet on the ground, but you definitely have the sense that your spirit is lifted. And that's a good feeling. It's a very elevating feeling, and it's not necessarily out of egoism or pride. It's out of a proudness to be part of something more than yourself. And I think this is what men are missing. They're so stressed out. They're so focused on anything but themselves because they're trying to get like a dopamine hit. And I've seen some crazy stuff. Like, I just got a video sent to me earlier by somebody in the Regal Change Academy, and it was about this guy in the military. I think it was in Florida, and he like killed somebody because he was trying to get some coochie. He was trying to get a piece of that pink palace, and he killed somebody for it. Like 21 years old. And the thing is if you're going to those kinds of lengths to get what you want, you're actually just hurting yourself at that point. Okay, you're actually just hurting your chances of finding peace and living a life of truth and understanding and genuine beauty. Because at that point, you're just giving in to the devil. You're not giving in and surrendering to the Most High. You are willfully going into iniquity and choosing to live a life based off of fleshly desires. And that's what a lot of the times these men don't understand. Like, me myself, I always considered myself like a spiritual person. I just knew there was something more, but I didn't know what exactly. And I was actually an atheist up until I was like 22 years old. But I always knew there was something more. I just didn't know. I didn't want to call it a higher power. I didn't want to call it God. I didn't want to call it all these things. But when I was 22, I had a Kundalini experience, I guess you could say. And I don't like calling it that now because that's not what it really was. But that's a story for another time. The point is that I had an experience in a dream, and I woke up and I started feeling these like pure feelings of flaming love in my belly, my heart, and then right here, my third eye, my pineal gland, I guess you could say, right? So I didn't know what this was, and I never believed in chakras. I never believed in Kundalini. I never believed in God. I never believed in any of these things. But this experience where I woke up from a dream, where I could see bubbles of time, and in each bubble I could peer into the bubble of time, and I could see like a lifetime being lived in each bubble. And when I woke up, that's what was happening. And I remember going into the mirror, and I remember recognizing my soul. For the first time, I recognized my soul in the mirror. And it was like something switched inside of me. Like I had a recognition that not only was I recognizing my soul, I was watching myself watch myself. And it was kind of trippy, but it was also very grounding. And I went back to my room and I sat on my bed, and I was just dumbfounded because it felt like my soul was finally back in my body. Like I had been rejecting my soul for so long up until that point, that when I finally allowed myself to feel what I was feeling, because The soul doesn't necessarily want you to be logical. The soul wants you to feel. The soul wants you to feel. And if you can get to that point where you're allowing yourself to feel, but not being controlled by the feelings, if you can conquer yourself, every man that knows that's been to the bottom knows that the biggest thing to conquer is himself. I actually might put that as the title, I don't know. But every man that has been to the bottom and has lived to tell the tale knows that conquering himself is the ultimate battle, spiritually and physically, etc. And conquering yourself, part of that is allowing yourself to feel what's actually happening. And a lot of men are just not doing that because they don't want to accept what they're actually going through. And they're trying to project, they're trying to do this, they're trying to do that. They don't want to actually look at themselves. But the men that know what it's like to be empty and now understand that now is always the time to win, they completely understand what I'm saying here. Y'all completely understand what I'm saying. So I hope this video was useful and insightful. If you do want to join the Regal Change Academy, where we get together for Bible study and for weekly group calls and other classes, we have the paid course available, and then we also have a free Discord that you can join as well. And the main difference is that you just get more stuff and more resources and more engagement in the paid community, whereas in the Discord, you have a little bit of amount of resources. You have a limited amount of resources, but we still have a lot of good stuff there and the godly community there too. So I also want to thank everybody moving from YouTube over to X and Rumble, specifically to X, because I foresee X being something really big in the future. And man, what a time to be alive, right? What a time to be alive. It's kind of nice to sit back and reflect on certain things and to really start to hone in and focus on what's most important. And I can think of no better thing to do right now other than to provide some informative and hopefully insightful understandings for people out there that need it the most. And with all that being said, specifically the men too, with all that being said, I hope this message again was useful and insightful, and until next time, peace be with you.